So what do you get when you get three co-living experts in the room sharing about the strategy to achieve financial freedom in 2025 using co-living? What do you get? You get pure magic, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not trying to boost myself up here, make myself better than I am. And the reason this episode is so good, it really could be a podcast episode because it was that good. It was hosted by my good friend, Jesse Ray. Now, Jesse Ray is an amazing coach and a mentor himself. He runs a company called Growth House, where he runs co-living, but in a really, really unique way where, you know, he has entrepreneurs come and stay in these growth houses, and you have to fill out an application to even get accepted into his homes. And he generates thousands of dollars a month from his homes for just a couple of homes. And then we've got Pascal Wagner, who's one of my dear friends for many, many years, who has 110 doors in Atlanta. And he manages these from thousands of miles away. He used to manage them from Denver. He manages them right now from Miami. And he's going to just talk about some of the secrets about, okay, how do you do this co-living model and manage it from a distance? What are the cash on cash numbers that you need? What are some of the operations need to look like to manage it from a distance? And we're really just going to give an overview of how to do co-living, how to scale quickly, and how to get the cash flow that you need to set yourself financially free. But here's the key, guys. Do it in a way where, pardon my language, but where shit doesn't hit the fan. You see, the three people that are on this episode, myself, Pascal, and Jesse, have all been through some challenges with the model. And so this is us just pulling back the curtain and saying, look, here's the stuff we've gone through, and here's how you can avoid going through and making some of those same mistakes. It's well worth your time invested in this episode. Enjoy it and share it with someone who needs to hear this.
Jesse Ray with the Growth House. We have two of my friends in the building. I'm not sure what we're going to call this, but for right now, we're calling it the Co-Living Showdown. We have two amazing operators, and I'll do a quick intro for each of them. As for me, myself, I was able to replace my six-figure corporate job through this strategy that we're going to talk about. First, it was house hacking, and then it was co-living. And from there, travel all around the world. I build the Growth House business. And this is what I want to do. I want to go to Pascal next. So I don't know, as I read your newsletters almost every day that you send out, Pascal, I don't know anyone else who's like giving me more ways to make passive income. Every time I see your email, I'm like, I've never thought about that. So I want to give you a big shout out on that. And you're at XVC at Techstars. You've deployed over $150 million over 3 years, known as a passive income expert, like I just mentioned. You've built a $150K a year cash flowing portfolio with 20 plus LP investments. In addition, you have an amazing co-living portfolio. Is there anything I missed or anything?
No, I think you've nailed it, man.
Okay. And then we have the co-living king himself. So, Mr. Sam Wegert. Sam has been doing the co-living strategy for over a decade, a mentor to myself and also Pascal in the co-living space. You have over 115 co-living beds, which might be more now. And you've recently sold a lot of your Airbnbs to go all into co-living. So it's a strategy you really believe in. You have an incredible community. I'm a part of your community. And you also host an amazing 5-day challenge, which I think last year I joined the 5-day challenge after I already replaced my corporate income, self-employed, have my own business. I did your challenge, and now I made an extra $24,000 last year just because of your challenge. You helped me out so much with just like adding bedrooms and certain things and changing my mindset about co-living and doing it better. So shout out to you. If you want to know more about either of these guys, we're going to have links, everything in the show description. But with that being said, I want to start by just saying why each of you got into co-living. So Pascal, want to kick us off?
Yeah, happy to. So thanks again for just having me on. So my journey started with someone who I think all of us know here is Diego Corzo.
Yes.
Back in 2013, 2014, I lent him the money to buy his first house, and he ended up doing co-living in that house. Back then, you know, the idea when you're living in it, it's called house hacking. That's at least how I think about it. And when I saw, you know, I would talk to him every week, and I saw how he was able to essentially live for free and make a profit just by doing co-living. And so I teamed up with him. and we went and bought a couple houses, and I was kind of like the money guy and would do everything that I could remotely, and he was on the ground, figuring out, showing rooms and checking in on the house when it needed to. So that's how I got started. Sam?
Yeah, my journey into co-living. Yeah, again, same. Pascal, honored to be here with you, brother. And Jesse, thanks for having us on, man. I'm excited to just deep dive into some of this stuff. Co-living for me was similar to what Pascal just said with Diego. I was the Diego in this case, where I was just trying to live for free, live on less, and bought a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo, had a good job, was making decent money. So it really wasn't about the money. It was just like being scrappy, being cheap, not married, no kids kind of thing. And then I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I was living in Charlottesville, Virginia, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I had my first friend, is also a mutual friend of Pascal and I. His name is Jason. He was a banker at the time, and he was making probably 6 figures plus, maybe multiple 6 figures at a big bank. And one day we were on a walk, and he goes, "Hey, I know you're renting your home by the room." And keep in mind, I wasn't renting it for money. I was really just renting it because I wanted to have friends living with me. And I found some cool people, and I was renting them rooms. And Pascal's like, not Pascal, Jason, my friend at the time, was like, "Hey, how much money are you making from that house?" And I said, "Well, I'm making like $2,850. And for whatever reason, it just kind of blew his mind. He was like, "Wow, that home would only rent for like $1,300 normally." And it was kind of the way he said it and the way it just, that was kind of when it clicked. And I was like, wait a second, like, what if I could do this? And I only had 4, it was me plus 3 people at the time. There's only 4 people in the house. So I was like, what if I could do this with 5 or 6 people or 7 or 8? I mean, I could do even more cash flow, right? And so kind of just went on this journey, and I won't get into, the details. We can get into the details later if you want, but went on this journey of just like buying a little bit bigger houses, and just experimenting with all of this stuff. And then had the unique fortune of coming across Robert Kiyosaki, met him at an event, and told him about this strategy. And I said, but like, I don't see a lot of other people doing this. Should I keep doing this? Should I go all in on this? Should I sell some, and he was just like, "Hey, I think it's the wave of the future." And so with that, bit of confidence, and I wrote in my book, I was like, "Wave of the future." And Diego, Diego's a theme here. Pascal, I think you were maybe at that event, but I know Diego was at that event because we were like in line trying to talk to Robert together. And he just said that, and he just gave me the confidence to kind of lean in and start doing this. And so I just started buying more of them and started teaching other people how to do them. And just that was the foray into this.
If that's not enough, you have a co-sign by Robert Kiyosaki that co-living is a wave of the future. That's pretty good right there.
Yeah, exactly. I thought so too.
You're like, we're gonna go all in. So what I want to do, because a lot of people have probably heard us on different platforms, they know the story about how we got introduced to co-living, and maybe they understand the concept, right? So this is really for the people that have already heard probably one of our podcasts, and now we're going to go more into a deep dive. And I don't believe this has ever been done yet on YouTube or any platform to actually talk about, pull the curtain behind some of the strategies that we use. And I want to start with the buy box. And I know people are like, "Jesse, like I'm not able to cash flow my market." It's like, guess what, guys? We have 3 different markets right here. So there's no excuse. Mine's probably even the higher end, where I'm in Scottsdale, Phoenix. Pascal, what market are you in? And then we'll kind of deep dive after that. But I just want to kind of share the markets that we invest for co-living. Pascal?
Yeah, currently I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I first started in Austin, Texas with Diego. And then, as Sam mentioned, I actually ended up, at first I was trying to partner with Sam. I was like, "Sam, we should do a bunch of homes together." And Sam was like, "Hey man, I don't know. This just doesn't fit with my strategy at the time." And so I was like, "All right." But he introduced me to Jason, and then Jason and I started buying houses together. So I bought some in North Carolina, and then at a certain point, I partnered up with Pad Split. I have a unique story of how I got introduced to Pad Split through my venture capital firm, and then I sold everything and just aggregated everything into Atlanta.
What about you, Sam?
I'm in 2 markets. I'm in Charlotte, and then I'm in Charlotte and Asheville, North Carolina. I have students in a bunch more markets, but that's where I personally own properties.
So real quick, let's just put that out there. We have 3 different people that have multiple homes, and we're in 4 markets in total. So would you recommend, when people looking to invest in real estate, co-living specifically, that they stay probably in 1 to 2 markets?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
without a doubt. The reason I sold everything and aggregated is because, I mean, like, first off, you have not only, at one point I was in 3 different areas. So it's like, okay, I not only have regulations that's different, I have to have 2 real estate agents, I need to have 2 maintenance people, I need to have 2 plumbers, three of everything. And it just makes everything significantly harder. Now that I have everything in Atlanta, I have one full-time maintenance guy who I treat really well. And he treats my houses really well. And it's just something you can't get if your homes are scattered across different cities. Like I now have most of mine within kind of like a 5-minute drive from each other.
Yeah, and
Anything
just
more
to
to
add
add?
on to that, I think it's like the biggest reason there's not more money in co-living, in my opinion, is just because the operations are still challenging at this moment at scale. I'm not saying I don't
Yeah.
think they're challenging for 1, 2, or 3 homes, but at scale, there's some nuances to it that make it different than just calling up a random property manager in any city and saying, manage this single family home. You can do that with single family. You can do that with multifamily. But co-living right now is new enough where I believe I 100% agree with Pascal. You need to plant your flag in a city and you need to say, this is my city. I'm going in on co-living.
I don't think it needs to be your own city, though, to be clear.
100%.
So
Yes.
I've never invested where I've lived ever. I've bought over, I don't know how many. I've bought 18 different properties so far, and like, yeah, none of them have been where I've always had a partner, or I've always done something strategically. So like even my first deal that I did with Diego in Texas, I was in Denver. So I don't want that to be a limiting belief for anyone.
I think it's almost better that you don't, because then you actually learn how to like be
Manage.
the actual CEO of the business instead of a investor with 1 or 2 properties, and you're going to go run over there whenever a toilet gets clogged or
Exactly.
you feel like you can, and so you do it. And I think one of the things, which we're kind of skipping ahead, but I had a situation where I was in Puerto Rico and one of my ceilings collapsed in one of my houses. And if I was still in Arizona, I probably would have drove over there, looked at it, and then be like, I can't do anything. So why am I even here? So it was actually good to be far away and realize, oh, I'm not the one that's supposed to fix these clogged toilets, fix, these issues that happen in the house, because stuff is going to happen. So I think it kind of it makes you become that elevated investor, business owner, once you realize that you don't have to be near the vicinity of your homes. So
you also run the business differently, as in like when I go and buy something, like it being me paying for management is a non-negotiable. Whereas I think when you kind of start, especially when you're deal hunting, especially for your first deal, you just want to make something work. And I think having the patience to find something that really fits within your buy box is a skill in and of itself. And when you are I'm not saying you should invest out of state, but what I am saying is that it forces you to be more disciplined, and it just changes the like, oh, like not a big deal, I'll just run over when something happens, to being like, no, this is a legit business and it needs to make at least this much for it to be worth my time.
Totally agree. All right, I'll go first, kick it off with my buy box. And guys, like, you guys can copy this. So I'm just kind of putting it out there. So for me, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I like to buy. I personally cater towards people who are business professionals, working professionals, typically people that can afford maybe a studio or a 1-bedroom, but they value community. They're looking probably to save for a house. So those are the type of people, and that's why I look in this buy box area. So for me, I look at 35 minutes to the nearest large airport. So that would be 35 minutes to Phoenix, Arizona airport. And then square footage. I typically like to do a 6'4" or a 7'4". That's kind of my sweet spot, meaning 7 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. And we can dive into that later, but that's usually about 1,500 square feet. We've converted 3 2s into 6 4s. We've done, 4 3s into 7 4s, but those are kind of my square footage and bathroom to bedroom ratio. For that, I look in Phoenix and also Tempe, which Tempe is a large college town, universities over there, a lot of young professionals. And typically we can find homes between 400 to 550. That is a nice little spread, but that depends on if the house, needs a lot done. And then as far as conversions, we like to look at carports and convert those into detached casitas. That's kind of been my special hack, which if you're listening to this, write this down. I'm giving you gold right here. A detached casita, an ADU, a carport into a separate entrance for that house. Doesn't even technically need to be as your co-living property. That can be Airbnb'd out, which I've done for multiple, months or even years. And so that's a secret hack there. Property type, single family with a detached casita, single family with the option to make it ADU in the backyard, or casita, aka convert carport. Typically right now we're looking at, and this is me and also my students who look creative financing, DSCR loans, traditional if they're looking to house hack, just with the rates right now. And then as far as the rehab, we don't like to do a lot of rehab. So it's really just adding the bedrooms and bathrooms. So for us, it's usually adding about 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 2 baths. And we like to stay under that 40K of remodel costs, which I think is really important to find. And this is where you connect with someone like Sam. This is why communities are so important. And people in this industry is like, who's a good GC? Who is someone that I can trust that can do these type of conversions? Like, reach out to us or other people in the co-living community, because this is how you find good people to work. And then for a house hack, my minimum is $1,000. So you live for free and you're making $1,000. If you're not living in the property, then my minimum is usually $2,000 of cash flow. And this is going to be controversial, but I don't mind HOA. But the HOA has to be under $100. And I go on Google Maps and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, parking is like one of the main things. Oh, there's cars all over the street. I'm good. So if you're able to see that the HOA rules are pretty lax, then I'm like, okay, this is something that I'm going to actually, drive by or have someone else drive by and really make sure that the parking is not going to be an issue there. So I gave you guys my buy box. Who wants to go next?
I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. That's solid, Jesse. I love it, man. Yeah, I think the interesting thing about a buy box is like it's with co-living, it's really cool because you get to be really creative. And the concept that comes up for me, I think when you learn real estate, there's this concept they teach you called the highest and best use of, like, usually it's like zoning committees use this concept when they're figuring out what land should be used for what. But in co-living, you're thinking, okay, we have a housing crisis. We're trying to solve affordable housing for this. And so the highest and best use of an empty room is a place for someone to live, right? Or like you said, Jesse, I really liked what you said as far as like, hey, if I have space in the back and I can put an ADU there and I can rent that out and create additional cash flow, like, yeah, you're trying to get super creative about using every square inch of this lot and every square inch of this piece of property for something that produces cash flow while still creating a safe, quiet, clean, affordable place to live. And I think that's what people should be taking away from that. I think you did a beautiful job explaining that. I'm fascinated. I'd like to be able to get 7 bedrooms and 1,500 square feet. I think I gotta get a little bit. Maybe I have to get even more creative with that to be able to get that. But so the square footage formula that we use, I'll start with square footage formula. We're similar. We say a commute's distance to employers. And so it could be an Amazon warehouse center. Commute's distance could just vary per town. For Charlotte, it's probably similar to what you're saying to the airport, Jesse. It's going to be 30 minutes away. You're 30 minutes away from employers that are going to employ someone that makes anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000 per year, right? Big Amazon warehouse center, colleges, airport is huge, places like that we're going to be looking for, that we want to be within a commute's distance of. It's a big plus if it's close to public transportation. So I used to not look for that at all, but if it's close to public transportation, I'm looking for that. That's an addition too. That's great. Our square footage formula is slightly different than yours. So if I see a 1,500 square foot house, I know it's a minimum of 4 rooms. That's without any conversions or garage conversions or anything like that. And then every 250 square feet we add onto that, I know I can get another room. This is the quick and dirty formula. You're scrolling through Zillow, you come across a 1,750 square feet house. Well, if I take the formula 1,500 plus 250, that's 5 rooms. I added 250 onto 1,500, that makes it 5. Every 250, it's additional rooms. So if I see a 2,000 square foot house, 6 rooms. 2,250, 7 rooms. 2,500, 8 rooms. Now, one of the differences, I think, in how I teach is that I lived in these homes for 13 and a half years. when I met my wife, I had 6 roommates. And so I am big on like every co-living home having some sort of a common area where people can connect, where there's desks, where people can eat, where they can co-work. So that's one thing that maybe allows the square footage to not be quite as intense. I'm not quite as dense, I guess is the word I'm looking for, as some other people. Yeah, for me, I'm not, and for my students too, I'm not looking for massive rehabs. I'm looking for something that needs the walls, that needs the closets. And that we can put some lipstick on if we need to, and then this thing is ready to go and ready to fill. Parking, obviously a big thing. I'm pretty against HOAs. I know we're gonna throw some things out there. I have had a legal battle with it with 1 or 2, and I just didn't enjoy it that much, so I decided to move away from it pretty strongly. And I recommend that. HOAs, I don't know. I just never had a good experience with an HOA. Maybe you have, and that's awesome. And actually, I'm impressed with what you're doing within HOAs, Jesse. So maybe you know the secret sauce, man. Yeah, I got to learn from you. But and then the last thing would be minimum of a 3-to-1 bedroom to bathroom ratio. So if you're going to go in, you're going to put 9 rooms in a house. I want to make sure that you have a minimum of 3 full bathrooms that are accessible to everybody. That might mean you have to take a master bath and make it accessible to more people than just the master bedroom. You might have to put another door in it from the other side, but you're trying to create not 4 people sharing or 5 people sharing or 6 people sharing or some craziness like that, right? Now, in a perfect world, you'd do 1-to-1. Everybody would get a private bath because that's what people like. People love that. It's obviously more private. It's great. You can charge more for it. And we're working on a build right now that will be 1-to-1, practically 1-to-1, right? From the ground up. So those are some things that we look for. And then maybe one more thing I'll mention, I'll turn over to Pascal, would be you're not looking for an A-class neighborhood. Now, Jesse, I know with your model, you probably are. I've seen some of your houses, man. I'm like, I'd live there, dude. Like for real. I'd live there. Like, it's nice. You got the pool and the thing. What I'm looking for is housing for someone who makes 20 to 50 to 60 grand a year. They need affordable housing. They don't need all the amenities. But I'm not going to stick one of these in an A neighborhood. I'm going to stick one of these in a B plus, maybe, but probably a B minus or a C plus neighborhood. And so we call it. It's kind of a nuanced chat, but it's like, does it fit the neighborhood? I think kind of what you said about the cars. Like, is this going to look odd? Are all the neighbors just going to complain about this weird house that's in there that has these cars kind of pulling in and out? Or does it fit, And so same thing, when I go into a house and I see the grass a little long on somebody, I'm like, hey, I like that his grass is a little long because it's going to fit. And obviously then it's easy to be the nicest house in the neighborhood, right? You want to be just as nice, if not nicer than every other home in the neighborhood. So there's some things we look at. I'm sure we could deep dive into that, but I'll pause it there. And I think that gives some context for kind of what I'm looking for when I go in.
Love it.
I am taking notes. All right. So I'm going to share my screen on this one. I actually wrote it down like this because this helped me be more systematized and systematic. And I literally gave this document to my real estate agent and said, this is what I want to see. Don't show me anything else. And so that's how I kind of approach this. Mine, I have zip codes within Atlanta that I'm focusing on. Mine here is a little different. I look for 2 bathrooms minimum with a 4-to-1 bed bath ratio, 1960 or newer. 2,000 square feet, no pools, no septics, and kind of the 8 to 10 bedroom range. These are, I think 8 to 10 bedrooms is what I've come up with due to Atlanta and where I'm investing. I think these things are different based on the area you're investing in. But my minimum is I'm targeting like a 15% cash on cash return. So the bedrooms kind of determines that, right? I really focus on less than half a mile from a bus stop. If it's 0.6 miles, I have some that are like 0.6 miles. 0.7 is like I don't touch them at all. Half of my tenants do not own cars, which I find really fascinating. A lot of them are taking the bus. No flooding associated with the property, no nearby railroads, mobile home parks, no HOAs, enough parking for 5 cars. I try to have like a 2-to-1 parking spot for 2 people ratio. I'm also trying to stay under 40K in renovation. No foundational repairs or anything like that. But I took away this question of around 30 minutes to the airport. I guess my properties are 30, 40 minutes from the airport. It's not something I really cared about. I don't know if my demographic is the demographic that could afford flying, if I'm being honest. It's not really something I think about. And then, yeah, the place has to fit. It can't be a sore thumb. So I thought, I took some notes from you guys, and something I'm going to think about moving forward.
So good. Guys, if you're watching this, this is people.
Document.
I know that document's amazing. So I want to actually highlight a couple things you guys have said. HOA, yes, I will 1000% agree. That is a higher risk. Number two, the square footage.
A good way to put it.
1500 is something that like you can get into, and then basically you're adding square footage to the house. That's converting the carport, boom. Then you have another 200 square feet. And then we add, maybe the backyard now has an overhang that we convert into 2 bedrooms. We've done that. So that adds square footage to the house. So to clarify, once we have about 7 bedrooms, the house is looking at, I would say, about 2,500 square feet. And then different demographic. This is awesome, just so people can watch this and be like, oh, so there is different ways to market. I wouldn't say to market to different people, but at least to provide housing solutions for different people. B- to B+ would be another thing that I would say for neighborhoods that I look at. Pascal, I saw something.
Yeah. I put together something that I think would be helpful for people that are in this phase of like, what is my buy box? And this was an exercise that I did when I was buying my next set of homes, which was basically like create your own map. So I went on the Google Maps, literally just made a screenshot, and I interviewed a lot of different people in the area. So I talked to a lot of different pad split people. I talked to other owners in the area, and I got them to tell me what they thought about the area, right? Like, I'm not from Atlanta. I don't really know what to expect out of Atlanta. So, see this big radius was like, okay, buses stop outside of that area. Where are the areas that are rougher? Where are the big universities? Where's the airport? Where are the affluent neighborhoods? Where are the, high income neighborhoods? And this kind of just like seeing it all on a map really helped me understand where I'm investing, and am I in the path of progress, or am I in the right place? So I thought this exercise was really good for me, and was also really helpful when I was trying to communicate with my agent and just make decisions when I was buying.
This is so good.
That's solid.
If someone wanted to create a map like that in like 3 steps, what would you say would be like the 3 steps for someone looking maybe out of state to make that sort of map and then give it to the real estate agent?
Yeah. I think the first step would be, I would get your real estate agent to tell you where everything is.
Make them work for that commission, guys.
Yeah. I mean, right? Like, you're hiring the agent supposedly because of their expertise. And you should be able to go to multiple real estate agents and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying pad split. Like, I want to do co-living. Like, help me understand like what this city looks like. Where are the affluent neighborhoods? Where are the major bus lines? Where do all the wealthy people go? Where are the largest employers? Like, get them to do the research for you, get it back, and then aggregate it all together.
So good. Anything you would add to that, Sam?
No, man, I think that was solid.
Yeah. I love that map.
I think when you're going into a new area, we had I had one of my students came in, he spent 8 months. Most of our students are like trying to buy the property in the first month or 2, right? And this guy spent 8 months flying around to different cities doing just what Pascal was saying to do. Meeting realtors, figuring out the different areas, but then studying like what city in all of America literally was his thing, where he should deploy his capital. And he lived in LA. He knew he didn't want to buy homes in LA, even though I know we have some mutual friends that do buy co-living homes in LA. So it is possible there too. But he looked at everything. He looked at everything from like what's landlord friendly to what cities have kind of come out and aggressively said they hate co-living and they want to try to fight it. So there's a regulatory environment in co-living that you've got to be somewhat cautious of. Again, we've got all kinds of hacks around that, but like somewhat cautious of to just what's having positive population growth, where are people moving to in general,
Right.
where are people moving away in general. And so I think there's some, that's very granular. And I think once you decide on your city, you almost gotta do at some level what Pascal said to do. Maybe just starting a little bigger picture would be to think about some of those things of like, okay, in general, where do I want to plant that flag? And then, getting your agents and getting your commercial agents, getting your lenders, getting your people to really map out what's in that city, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think like to add on this idea is like, I am definitely not the smartest person in the room, but I know how to talk to a lot of people and triangulate. And I think that's a skill set that I've just kind of like leaned on. And I think if you're feeling overwhelmed about doing anything really, like apply this to anything you're trying to learn, but especially here in co-living, it's like you could ask us a bunch of questions. You could ask agents, but just like Sam said, there are so many people that are involved on a commission basis in helping you do this, right? That you should just leverage that.
A great hack too, in addition to agents, is to call property managers. They know like where they're getting applications for. Call like a manager that manages like a few hundred single family homes or multifamily or whatever, and just be like, where are people asking to move? Where have you seen more people? They know the areas, they know
where's the crime.
They can say stuff too that an agent like technically shouldn't say based on whatever rules. Like a property manager can tell you the real. And so I think that's someone gave me that hack the other day, and I haven't personally used it, but it blew. I was like, that's a good idea.
That one's great. And also you can look at like Google has a huge headquarters that's, I think going to be in Mesa. And so kind of talking about the path of progress, look where those huge corporations are, especially if you're targeting people like I'm targeting. It's like, okay, cool. Have a house near there. They have, thousands of people are going to work there. Just another thing I thought of. What do you typically look at starting wise, bedroom to bath, and then what do you convert it into?
Yeah, I don't really have a specific starting. The home, and I think I saw this on Pascal's buy box too, which is similar to mine. It has to hit a certain return. If I can do that in a 6-bedroom house, like great. Like it's a little harder to do it in a 6-bedroom house. But sometimes those, our sweet spot right now when we're buying in terms of what we're seeing, in order to hit our numbers, we're seeing the sweet spot be 7 to 10 rooms. Mm-hmm. I've got a student who did a 12-bedroom house recently. I got another student who did an 11-bedroom house recently. It's fine. They kind of packed them in. It was a big house, 3 levels, huge. Like that's fine. And that has some different, there's some different, more nuances when you're getting that many people sharing a house. But I think the sweet spot is 7 to 10. And we're also seeing us able to hit our 15 to 20% cash on cash return, with those numbers that we need to see. Obviously, those numbers, those cash on cash returns can be way higher. That's not including like appreciation or depreciation or principal pay down or all the other benefits you get from real estate. That's strictly like a cash on cash return. And it can be a lot higher depending on how you finance it, Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we look at. I really, frankly, when I coach, I tell them like, don't even look. I don't care how many bedrooms and bathrooms. I mean, bathrooms, I do care a little bit, but I care about square footage. How big is this thing?
Same. I think bathrooms are the hardest thing. So, it's kind of like if I find a place that has 3 bathrooms to begin with, that's
full bathrooms. Awesome, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you need to, in theory, you need to get permits and you like to add bathrooms, and it's way harder to do. Or you can get crushed if you don't get permits. Right. And so I think there's that. And then something that I've become very, I've had quite a few issues with the cities that I'm in, and I have really learned how much the minimum square footage you need per room and the regulations around that. And each bedroom needs it's dependent per county, but each bedroom needs to be at least 150 or 200 square feet to like legally be considered a bedroom. So I've been I'm the person that's going in and taking in something and making it into 10 rooms. And so I think if you're doing that, what you're trying to do is reduce the risk in this. There are so many ways in which any investment, whether it's co-living or otherwise, it can go sideways. And so, I think what's the difference between a newbie and someone who's done, 10, 20 homes is they just care about these things a lot more, and they're deal breakers to me now. Whereas in the beginning, I thought, I just need to get started, which might be true. You just have more scars.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned that, Pascal. I'm trying to pull up this texting thread. So the international building code says the one says that every bedroom needs to be 70 square feet, but then each state has a different requirement based on their building code. And so North Carolina, it's 100. It's 100 square feet is the minimum. I don't know what it is in Georgia. Actually, would be
in my county. It's 200. In one of the counties that I was in.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's really interesting.
Also, what I didn't appreciate or realize, we're talking about, stick with one city. So I thought I was staying in the city of Atlanta, and 2 out of my 12 properties are in a different county. And so all the regulations are actually different from county to county and city to city. And the regulations of how many people you can have in one house, when I just assumed that I could just go buy, and the amount of people you could have in each home is generally the same, because I was like, oh, I'm just buying in Atlanta, it's the same across. No, I think I'm across 5 or 6 different cities, and each city has their own limit and rules. And so, I think one of the lessons I've learned as I've grown is really staying focused in one area, because it's not just, having a maintenance person that runs around, but it's also the different laws that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's true. Sam, is there anything? Because I'm pretty sure you probably dove into that a little bit more.
On the regulation rules side of things?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Pascal might have me beat on the rules regulation side of things in terms of what he's had to deal with. I mean, I think the truth is, look, okay, so to offer value to the listeners here, I think pad split attracts a lot of attention because they've gone big. And so you kind of if you're, and Pascal's had a very close proximity to pad split. So I think, they're in the public's eye. Right. And they're not trying to be out of the public's eye. Right now, I think we've got 350 doors, between the ones that I own personally and the ones that I manage. Right. Pad split's at 15,000 across 15, 20 states. I mean, they're in a lot of places. Right. So, and maybe it's not that many, Pascal. You can probably speak to that more than I can. But, for me, I remember the first call I had, though, because one of the things that I wanted to do when I started scaling, little s, not scaling big S like pad split, but when I started scaling, I wanted to set myself up legally for the right conversation. So I called pad split and I said, hey, can I just talk to your head legal guy? And he said, sure. And I said, hey, what are you guys doing to get around some of these regulations? You're operating all these places. He said 2 things. Number one, he goes, trash cans and grass. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, Sam, most of our complaints come when these homes are in disrepair. And I think that's a valuable thing for listeners to hear. Yeah. You leave the trash cans on the street for an extra week because you don't have a system for who brings the trash cans in, or nobody does that. A neighbor's going to look at that. A neighbor's going to be like, what the F is going on in that house? And they're going to dig a little bit, and they're going to be annoying. They're going to call the city and complain. And if your grass is overgrown, you've got shutters falling off. And so I think what's really important with this model is the cash flow can be great. You can solve a real problem. And I think one of the things that I've done really well is, because we are at a smaller scale, I've been able to kind of pay attention to some of these smaller things and kind of fly, let's say, under the radar, so to speak, more. But just making sure the homes are just really well taken care of, and figuring out how to take care of the trash cans and the grass. And the second thing the lawyer told me is, he said, we use a membership agreement model. We don't actually lease it out to a bunch of people. We have these companies that lease it, and then we have they become members. And it's how we get around some of the permanent resident phrases and clauses and some of these things that make it feel like it's a boarding home or a rooming home. And the city tries to and again, this is a whole big conversation. I mean, we could literally spend the rest of the time talking about this, and Pascal would have a tremendous amount to add to this because he's in the weeds more than I am. So I think when it comes to the distinctions, Pascal, can speak a lot to that. I think what I want people to take away from this is, look, you can do this, and each city is going to have their own restrictions and their own rules, and you need to look into that, and you need to know that, and then you might decide to go beyond what that restriction allows. It might say 5 people and you go to 7. And what I have found is that is usually in most, and again, I have students in probably 30 cities right now. I mean, we're between all my students, we're probably at 1,500 doors. We're not at 0 scale. And what I found is it becomes an issue when you stop taking care of the little things you need to take care of just to make that house feel like a real house in that neighborhood. So make sure it's just as nice, if not nicer than every other home in the neighborhood. And that's 80% of your things. Now you've got the 20%, that if you're managing on your own, you're still going to have to worry about that. But I think that's what I want to add to this party, to kind of this pool of meaning right now as people think this through. And I guess the last thing I'll say is there's definitely areas like Nashville came out, Sarasota came out, and we're just like, we don't like co-living. We're going to really fight it like crazy. And so you want to think about what the regulatory, what the temperature is, I think, towards this model. Now, I'm also placing a bet that the regulatory environment for co-living is going to get better, not worse.
Yes. It's already happening.
I think we're all kind of placing that bet. Like Airbnb, if anybody's got an Airbnb, we all know what's happened there. Like New York City, boom, not a single Airbnb in New York City left, right? Barely. Right? Like all these areas cracking down. I think it's just a matter of time before people start to realize, like, wait a second. This is a way to solve the issue that people are literally rioting about. I mean, I just saw some riot of like they shut down something in Brooklyn and people on the streets with picket signs and all this crazy. It's like, we're solving that issue, and it just takes time. So one of my strategies is to be prepared legally, and I've got a great legal team. Pascal has supported me with that. He's helped me with that. He's referred me some great lawyers. So we're prepared to fight it if it comes up. But at the same time, I'm also letting like the big guys like PadSplit take on the big, heavy, expensive legal battles and kind of get the word out. And we're just coming in and doing what we do, maybe a little bit more under the radar. Still prepared, still having the legal team, still having membership agreements, still setting this thing up as best we can. But I think that's the one of the things I'm appreciative to of PadSplit for really taking this to the big level, and Pascal's a part of that, being with PadSplit. So
100%. I guess I want to ask one thing before we dive into the next section. Someone might hear this in their first time co-living and they're like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a bunch of legal battles and stuff like that. What would you say to make them not overthink this? Because this is something that's going to rarely probably happen to someone that has maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4 co-living properties.
I'm going to let Sam go first because I think his answer is going to be a little better than mine.
Pascal is jaded.
Yeah, I would just reinforce what I said. I would say, take care of your home.
Yeah.
Treat the members right. Run it like and maybe just a personal story of like, guys, I didn't think about legalities at all until I had probably 10 properties and 100 tenants, and I had some 6, 7, 8, 9 member homes, and it wasn't an issue. The only issue I had was the HOA, which is why I stayed away from them. But again, like, and I think, Jesse, you can speak to that as well. So I think my answer is, get some advice on where's what we call co-living friendly, like a city that's co-living friendly. Make sure you're in that area. And once you check that box, I think you need to make sure you're following codes. And I think you need to make sure you're treating the members right. And I think you need to make sure you're taking care of that house right. And 98% of the time, unless you're doing something crazy, I think you're good.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to what PadSplit said was they said the grass, the trash, and the parking. Make sure your parking isn't looking crazy. Like for us, we're at the HOA, but we're next to a park that has parking all along the street there. Everyone else parks there, so it's perfect. We have multiple, driveway spots on the same side of the house, so that's not an issue. So that's the only thing I would add there. Is there any last things before
Pascal answers, I would just say, like, the one thing I would say is this: recognize that any new asset class that is high cash flowing has a little bit of this rumbling because people don't know how to like treat it or where to stick it. And well, is it a boarding house? Is it not? It's not really. It's kind of different. It's a different so I think recognize that, like, yes, but I believe that the risk that's associated with this is worth. I mean, what else can you go cash flow 2,000? You said your minimum, Jesse, was $2,000 a house. What else can you go cash flow $2,000 a house? Which means you could have 3 homes and you're making $72K a year. If my math is correct, that's $6K a month. That's $72,000 a year. You know, that's a dream that people would kill for and would be, you know, you get to get out of your W-2 with that. I mean, so yes, you're in a blue ocean, we call it, which is where like not everybody is yet. So there's gonna be some of that rumbling, right? But you don't want to get into it once it's already all figured out and everybody's figured out how to get their piece of the pie and make money, because then it's not going to be as profitable. It's profitable usually when it's a blue ocean. So those are my thoughts. Those are my opinions.
Anything
I
you want to
resonate
add,
a lot
Pascal?
with that. I think you're right. Like in your first couple homes, it's not a big deal. You know, if you're one person and you have everything taken care of, you know, I think I never had any issues for the first 7 years that I've been doing this. And it's when I switched over to PadSplit and I also hired a third-party property manager that wasn't me. I kind of relied on PadSplit's internal team a little too much, and they weren't kept up as well as it should have been. And that's when I started getting these legal problems. And so I mean, the 3 things you're talking about are the things that matter. I think also you need to think about, it's not free to get a high return. You know, it's if you want to go get a 5 or an 8 or, you know, whatever return on your investment, yes, there are many vehicles that are much safer, that have less stress, you know, that you can go after. But you are providing a service to people who need it. It's a new thing, and with new things and high returns comes risk. And so, you know, I think that's just part of being an entrepreneur and accepting that's part of the game. One other point I want to make is
That's the real. That's really great. You can get 4.5% in a money market and it just sits there and does nothing. But this is like, we're trying to 4 or 5x that.
Right.
6x that if you take into all the other things that all the other benefits we're getting. So well said, Pascal.
I think there are also a few, like another piece that I think about here, which is I'm also a little bit more mission driven. So like Sam, I've lived in what I call this a product. This is a housing product. And I've lived in this type of product for over a decade as well. You know, I did 4 years in college. I did 4 years, 5 years after I graduated college and I moved to Boulder, Colorado. It was the only way I would have been. Moved into an entrepreneur house. And then I ultimately kept reducing the number of roommates as my income grew. But, you know, I'm used to it. I know it. And what I think is really fascinating is this argument or this idea around, did you know that if you are a family, at least in Georgia or in my cities, you're allowed to have an unlimited number of family members that live with you. And it is illegal to have more than X number of people live together if you don't have familial status. This was like one of, you know, before I really got and like scaled this, I talked to the head of legal at PadSplit, Charles Gross, and we talked a lot about this, where it's like, it is in theory what the counties or states are doing is unconstitutional, and that is what PadSplit is fighting. Like I'm involved. Three or four of my homes are involved in a major statewide court case with PadSplit, where that's like one of the main claims. It's like you are giving rights to people who are part of a family and not everyone else, and that's unconstitutional. So I think, you know, there are things like that that make me I'm aligned. I'm along for the long haul. I grew up in this product. I've been in it. Probably most people have grown up in these types of products. And that's a fight I'm willing to take.
Yeah, that's good. There's some really good points there. I'll say, yeah, I had the product too in college, hated it, swore that I would never have roommates again in my life. So I went 4 years in a little bedroom, studio. And then I bought my first house hack. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have, roommates come live with me. And it's structured, it's clean, and it was the best experience. So I think it says a lot.
I think you also owned that house, right?
Well, that helped.
It helps when you own the house.
But still, it's like when the product is great when you have a good operator in place and it's structured and it's clean, like we all talk about. But yes, let's move. Actually, before we move into the next topic, let's just talk, because we keep on mentioning pad split. Just overall thoughts. Let's make this a quick section. For me, pad split, I love them because people that come to me and they just don't fit like our house for whatever reason, maybe they can't afford it. I don't feel bad by saying no. I'm like, you know what? I have a great, partner in pad split that I refer them to. So that's great for me and why I love pad split. And I think they are doing a great job just really helping solve the affordable housing situation across America. So that's kind of like my key takeaways from them. They've been great, helped me with questions that I had around legal stuff. So anything that you guys want to say on pad split?
Yeah, I'll go real fast because Pascal probably could go longer on them. I have a huge, place in my heart for pad split as well. I think they're leading the charge with affordable housing. They're taking the brunt of it. I mean, it's hard to be number one in a new space, right? And so they have a lot of courage by going in, fighting some of these battles. Everything that Pascal just mentioned about them saying like, hey, like we're taking this unconstitutional fight maybe to the Supreme Court. Like that's pretty cool. I have some differences of opinion of how I want to run my houses. I want common areas. I want less bedroom to bathroom ratios. I want a little nicer experience. I don't want to put as many people in a home. But those are ultimately, that's like how I see that is it's like a slightly different product that I want to create in the marketplace. But from a mission standpoint, super aligned with what they're trying to do.
Well, I would argue, Sam, those things that you just mentioned, the common areas, the whatever, that's just a house choice. That's not like whether pad split or not. Just for the listeners so they don't get confused. But I think I've done both. For the first 7 years, I did self-manage, and I've recently switched over to pad split. And I think you need to figure out what problem you're trying to solve by using pad split. So what I mean by that is
real quick, pad split essentially, this is how I describe it. You guys describe it maybe.
It's the Airbnb for co-living.
Okay, there you go. It's a 30-day stay for co-living, Airbnb style.
Yeah, totally. So
a weekly stay, right?
They pay by the week. They pay by the week, but it is. I don't actually know the official rules. I think they need to intend to book for at least 3 months. But they do pay by the week. But so here's the take that I think is the difference between self-managing and pad split. And here's why I think I would probably recommend, maybe not if you take Sam's course and he shows you how to do it all, but pad split takes some of the pressure off of what you need to learn and do, right? So with pad split, I need to worry less about where are the leads coming from, how are they booking, screening, things like that. Because pad split has a marketing arm and they're constantly getting people onto their platform and trying to fill rooms. They're incentivized to fill your rooms, right? Whereas if you're self-managing, you need to do all of that on your own. So actually earlier this year, I went through a transition where I actually was trying to move off of the pad split platform because I pay over $80,000 a year at pad split. Actually, I pay over $100,000 a year, including credit card management fees. So to me, I had a huge incentive to switch. And when I came to pad split, they are willing to foot the bill for all legal expenses. So basically, I hired my attorney and they are paying for them. So that was a huge plus for me, to know that I would kind of be under that pad split brand. Second, I would kind of have that membership model that Sam was talking about that's already baked in. Third, they did a lot of the vetting and the getting the leads for us. And so, to me, it was like, okay, I could try and build this part of my business and make an extra 100K. Okay, great. But now I have to manage not only an extra person, and I have to take on the legal liability risk. And, there are all these things, and then you still probably have to pay for some other management system and then, you have to do your accounting, and you got to do the whole nine. Whereas for me, that extra squeeze out of to get an extra percentage, like a couple extra percentage points for the trade-off of now needing to manage more people and learn how to set all that stuff up. Maybe I'll do that at some point in the future. But right now I just, I kind of like the trade-off, and I'm willing to pay that. And I still make a ton of money.
I love that breakdown. For me, I think, especially for people starting off, I totally see why it would be beneficial to have them kind of help with that facilitating of the leads and even a little bit of the management. I personally, since I don't have as many homes as you guys have, I just like keeping all the cash flow. So I always say to people who are starting off, like, hey, try this yourself, especially if you're in Sam's course or you're looking to actually do this like for your way out of your job, which it doesn't take many. Everyone knows my story. It took two of them. Last year, it brought me $209,000 and $104,000 in cash flow, 2 homes. So it is very possible to replace your income or your job income through this strategy. So I guess that's my last 2 cents. I'll say. Anything that you want to say before we move on, Sam?
No, I think it's I think you both hit the nail on the head. I think it's you've got different options. Everybody's got to make the decision that works for them. I think your story is very powerful. Pascal lives thousands of miles away, maybe hundreds now. Used to live thousands. He moved, but he lives close. But he lives away. He's remote, but he's still got to. I think it makes sense. Like, it just makes a lot of sense for what Pascal is doing. And I had a lady in my course recently that came to me and said, she goes, "Okay, I launched my house. It took her like a year and 3 months to get it all rehabbed and all up, and it was long. She was like, I had a daughter die from cancer and that. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry." She goes, "But I just filled my 12-bedroom house." I was like, "Okay, well, it took a little longer than we wanted to, but like, sorry." And I was like, "How much you netting?" She's like, "I'm netting $5K a month off one home," right? So it's like similar number to you're pulling. And I was like, "Dang, girl!" Like, and of course that she gets to manage it. She's like, "I love the members and so cool." And so it just depends. Like, for her, she wouldn't use pad split, right? But I think Pascal's, depending on your goals of scaling and how many of these you want and all that. Yeah, I think it all adds to the pie and what's the best decision for you, which is, subtle, not so subtle plug for just getting good coaching around this, whether you're talking to any of us or someone else. Like, get good coaching around this, have someone to talk you through what works and what's best for you. That's the key thing here. So guys, one of the biggest things about co-living is the operations. You see, anybody can go out there and find a deal. Anybody can go out there and just say, "Oh, this home looks good for co-living." Anybody can even rehab. Rehab's not insanely hard. It can be difficult. You got to work with contractors, the whole thing, but it's not insanely hard. But here's what's difficult. Operating a co-living home month after month after month after month after year after year after year, well, with good systems while maintaining your integrity, right? And not murdering any of your members. So my point in saying this is where the rubber meets the road. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got to this outro and really took advantage of the end of this and got through the entire thing. It was fascinating. It was an honor to be a part of this little conversation, and I'm hoping that you got a ton of value. I'd love to hear in the comments. I do read all the comments. I'd love to hear in the comments what you guys took away from this and what you're going to do because of this episode. God bless you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.